I'm introducing the new layout of the slideshow. It's not done yet, but I feel pretty comfortable with the basic layout. So let me introduce it to you, and of course, feel free to change things as needed, but here's the theory behind what I'm doing. I'm going to go into presentation mode to explain a little bit about the ideas behind it. So if you subscribe to what I'm doing, here's the idea. Less per slide, we already know about that. And so we have our intro slide, then we have this, then we have this, and then we go into a black background pretty much for the rest of the slideshow. The theory is darks appear further away, highlights appear closer. We want the text or the content to come closer to the audience. Also, when this is being presented, the black background will blend in with the wall. So what we'll see when we're projecting on the screen is that the word agenda is just sitting there, and we have the whole wall of the presentation from the screen and everything. It's part of our presentation. So it's almost a magical thing. This word is just sitting there. And so in formatting it, I used Arial font. It's kind of boring, but I just used bold and non-bold to accentuate what we're trying to do. And the theory behind that is contrast. Let me go back a little bit. The theory of design is I'm using crap. Sorry for the term, but it's contrast, repetition, alignment, proximity. And contrast is the #1 design rule. And so we're contrasting bold from not bold, use of color to no use of color. Another piece of this is starving the audience for any kind of media, any kind of sensation visually. And then when they see something that's a little different, they'll eat it up. And so it's called amplification through simplification. And that's, again, the theory behind all this. When in doubt, leave it out. If you're putting it there, people are going to look at it, they're going to want to know more about it. And the last component behind this process is that the right brain and left brain context and content. Data, text is left brain, content, and we want people to have that information, but we need to make context. And context is story, it's emotion, it's all that material. And so if we have just content on the screen like we're looking at right here, what we'll be saying as we go through these, this is pretty simple stuff. We'll be saying, okay, here's our agenda. And I would argue you don't even read this. You let people read. The idea is that people cannot read and listen at the same time. And so if we read our slides, we're doing them a disservice. Now, the flip side is if I have this right here, I'm not going to read it, but I know, hey, we're going into learning objectives. And it's a lighter, dusty blue. And that calls a difference. Like, why is this light blue? Well, all the main headings are light blue like this, and they're a little bit bigger and bolder. The content that falls under that heading, I broke out into the individual slides, is predominantly not bold and just white. Here we go to pre-assessment, and the same thing. I converted all the links into light blue so they aren't as obnoxious, but they do have the underlines that we know that they're links. And so again, you can see this. Now I used a different color up at the top here because this is one of our main concepts that we're talking about. So I used a real light orange to, again, call a difference to it. So people are going to see that color and pay attention to it and go, whoa, that's something new. I haven't seen that yet. And it's going to draw their attention. Furthermore, at the bottom of the slide, you'll notice that I used a moderate gray for the citation. The citation is not the main point of the slide. The main point of the slide is the heading at the top, but also the content in the middle. So we want the citations to be there because that shows legitimacy and credibility, but we don't want it to upstage the content. So it's big enough to be read, but is grayed out a bit so that we aren't overly drawn to it. And as we move through the rest of the slideshow, you can see that structure and format is kind of following suit. Now, granted, this is a very different way of presenting, and it does call upon us as presenters to know the content, maybe to print out some sheets for our section. The idea is when the text is on the screen, that will prompt us to, these are our notes. If we read the content that's on the screen along with them, there's nothing wrong with that, but it's really just kind of a launching pad to kind of keep us focused and on task for the 15 minutes that we're going to be presenting. And when we get together face-to-face, we could go through how we want to do our particular sections, but each one of us would have the content that we're seeing on the screen here to practice and to add other material to it. What I ask is if you're going to add material to it is to follow these conventions. If it's not bold or bold, Look at the size of the fonts we're using and so on. Oh, by the way, this slide, there was so much content, I didn't know how to break it out. Because we are comparing two different things, having a lot of content on a slide is fine if it helps the people, the audience, make meaning. In this case, we're comparing the environmental systems and societies on the left and literature and performance. We can see how they are similar or what is different by these separate components. And so when this slide comes up, what I would recommend is that they can read the light blue heading at the top. That's fine. They can read the different colored subheadings. They can see the columns of information. And we give them a moment to think through this and to see some of the comparisons. And the person presenting this could highlight some of the main points here. Furthermore, the person presenting this section could change the color of some of the key words within here, and that will help draw attention to what we're trying to share. If there's similarities in here we want to accentuate, highlight those in maybe a light yellow or something else that is different than the color scheme that we have throughout the presentation. And the brighter the color, the more people are going to look at it, the more they're going to want to know why that's really different. Just remember that. So if you're doing muted tones, that's relaxed, it's easygoing. If you use bright colors, it's saying, hey, look at this, this is really important. And feel free to use that if you want. I put this picture in because it wasn't a slideshow, but essentially we're moving into a new section, then we have an image, and then we go through the rest of the content. So this is, again, the process. You just say the thing, boom, 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 as you move through the section. And yeah, I think that's it. I put in the links to the videos, and you can see that there's a link at the beginning of the timestamp, like under challenges, successes, and student discussion. I put in the recommendations that people sent me or put into either the forum or the slideshow. If I missed one, let me know. But we can still make decisions on what clips we want. Now, the clips start at the timestamp in the beginning. So for instance, under challenges at 000, it's starting there. We have to turn it off at 20 seconds. So it doesn't automatically stop. And the reason I did that is that the complete clip is there in case we change our mind or want something else. But what I did is I linked to the timestamp, meaning like the second one under challenges. In the video on YouTube, if you right-click on a YouTube video, it gives you a context menu that gives you an option to create a link to that specific moment in the video. And what I did is took those links and highlighted, in this case, the 1 minute 30 seconds, highlighted that and made that a link to that point in the video. If that makes sense, feel free to do that yourself. But that's the process I went through here. And last thing here, you'll notice that I inverted the colors. We have a lighter background, and we have the font now is dark, so that's maximum contrast. You want lights on darks or darks on lights, and you want to really pump the contrast up. The citation's at the bottom. It's a white font on a darker background because of the stone. That's a little bit easier to see. The audience won't be able to read it because it'll be too far away, too small a font, but they at least know it's there. And then I just changed these to all white instead of having the blue links because the blue was really dark and wasn't working. If we want to change the link colors back, that's fine. But the underline and the HTTP indicate that they are links. And then I end with the IB typical end slide. So that's my overview of what I've done. If you like it, great. If you want to modify it, I'm completely open to that as well. The intention was to get the content out so we can continue working on this version. I prefer that we do that if we like it. So if you like it, just keep adding to it. We can put more comments in. When I exported the original slideshow out, the comments came along. I put it in PowerPoint on my computer. I made the modifications to the content, or not the content, to the structure. And then when I imported it back in, most of the comments came back through. But again, I did move some of the slides around, so some of the comments may be gone. My apologies for that, but hopefully this is making sense. And yeah, thank you so much.